Welcome to the Dave Palma Show, the podcast that revives, restores, and awakens your innermost capabilities.
You have the training and the talent to succeed, but do you have the guts to fail?
I love what I do. When you love what you do, you want to be the best at it.
Today is about the power of you. You will change the world.
Find your path to success through the journey of those who have succeeded. And now, your host, Dave Palma.
Hi, welcome back to the Dave Palma Show. And with me in this episode, I have a retired fire lieutenant, meditation teacher, podcast host who's enjoyed concurrent careers in emergency services, music, and meditation. He hosts the Responder Resilience Show and co-hosts Peaceful Oasis Live with Tamara, and founded the Loving Meditation app and authored the best-selling book Live Calm with Cancer and Beyond. David Dachinger, welcome to the Dave Palma Show.
Thanks, Dave. It is great to be here, and I'm looking forward to talking with you.
Great for you to be here as well, and I'm sure we've got a lot in common. Obviously, being a firefighter is a huge part of our life, but I think outside the job, I enjoyed doing sports, whereas you was into music at the time. And did you do that like while you was a firefighter and before, or?
Yeah, well, to even back up a little further, music was always a part of my life growing up. It was an immersive for me because my whole family were music educators. Oh, okay. And that was great. I was good at music, but I was never good at sports. And just as a side, note, I always was, we call it spaz, but the kid that it's not coordinated, So at one point, a guy said to me, "Hey, come on, try out for the track team." I'm like, track team? I can't, it's not my thing. Like, it was the first time in my life I remember just like a door opening and deciding to go through it. And that pattern repeated many times, but I did go through the door. I started running track, and it changed my life. And that's, kind of started an exercise discipline that's carried forward past high school, but it was a huge thing.
Yeah. I mean, generally, just getting involved with sports is a good way. We call it PE or physical education in the UK, and it's part of the curriculum because it's part of physical, mental well-being, if you like, which we can go into more. So whether you like sports or not, it's kind of getting into something physically. But of course, you could still get physically fit doing gardening and lumping heavy stuff if you're doing some kind of construction thing in your own house and stuff like that, doing the grocery with like many heavy shopping bags and things like that, so
well I'll circle back to the music piece, but the exercise definitely played a role in my fire career, particularly because I joined I joined as a career firefighter kind of later in life, and so being in shape really made a difference. But to jump back to the music piece, I did music as a composer for sports on network television, and did it while I was working as a firefighter. And,
while you was working as a firefighter, yeah. Okay.
Our schedule was such that we had, plenty of time. Most guys had a side job. My side job was writing music. I was kind of like the oddball guy because everybody else is a electrician.
There's a few. I mean, in London you see a few, but most were DJs really. Like music DJs. Music. Wow. But actually, I have more of a music talent in my family as well. I've got a classically trained flautist cousin who goes around the world. One of the best in Britain, and. The other one was a DJ, but it was more, club, hip hop and R&B and stuff like that. But sadly, he passed away as well last year, end of last year. But he was nationally known, on the radio stations and stuff like that. So, that's creating music, I suppose you could call that music. but the other one, it plays the flute and plays quite well. So, yeah. Well, so I mean, I know about music in that sense, but I went more the sports career where I would try track, when I was at primary school, which you call it elementary school, later in life, but I was struggling. But I won't go into details, but it helped me. So music was your life, and obviously it's in your family. Then you decided to become a firefighter, and I know a lot of firefighters that do join late, especially these days, because they lifted the law on age discrimination. Because before it was, you only can be 18 to 30, and that really restricted it,
Right. And here it's very dependent on where you are. If you were in, say, New York City, there is a very hard cutoff for age to be hired. However, in some towns, particularly in Connecticut where I worked, they did lift, or they can't actually discriminate. They can't even ask you how old you are during the process of getting hired. They even took out of the contract where there was an age limit. So I joined, after being a volunteer firefighter, I joined the department I worked at the age of 53. And they send you immediately.
You joined at 53?
53.
Wow.
They send you immediately to the fire academy. And there you are for 16 weeks with guys who are 20, 25, 30 years old. And to me, it was an opportunity to, draw on my sports experience as a runner and, doing typical stuff at the gym. And it was like I had a lot of attention on me in a way because I was the oldest person to ever go through this fire academy. And I'm like, I can't mess this up. I have to, not only get through this, intact, but I really need to kind of show that age is not necessarily a limiting factor for being able to do this job, at least, at least at that point in my life.
Yeah, that's quite interesting, really, because the maximum age you could work, well, really, some firefighters do push to like 57 before they retire, but for UK, it was 55. But the government there was a big kind of almost strike action over it. They changed the pension age to 60. And they were saying, oh, you can't do that. And it's discriminating women, especially because the fitness level is kind of, slightly different and things like that. The older people were joining and they didn't mind, but they didn't really care about the pension side. It was doing the job, so it was like, but it was like more early 40s, that I heard say. Oh, that's quite interesting. So so really music was your life, but then you had this career now, and I see you're a lieutenant, which is really great to, obviously a lieutenant on the fire station.
It was an interesting position as well, because when being a smaller department, when you're promoted to lieutenant, you're also effectively promoted to acting captain. And when your captain is out for sick leave or vacation, you are in command of the shift and basically in charge of the firehouse. So quickly put me into I would say, out of my comfort zone to be in that position to be commanding incidents and running a daily shift, which involves a lot of administrative and kind of interpersonal skills, which, they don't necessarily teach you those and, when you're in school.
Yeah. No, personal development skills, you mean, things like that. Yeah, there's a lot of jobs like that. They say that about the business world. It's like, oh, well, they didn't teach you this at school, that at school. And, so, I mean, in fact, there's entrepreneurs that are still at school and they're doing well and stuff like that. Same with sports as well, though, really, isn't it, really? But they do teach sports at school, so. Yeah. But yeah, that's quite interesting and varied work. And I know you mentioned to me off air that you even attended Ground Zero, which obviously is a big incident. Even on the relief, is quite that's quite a harrowing event for the whole of America, and it's close to you anyway, wasn't it? Even though they sent firefighters from across America. Yeah,
super close. Jumping back to the music piece, I was in a band that played at the restaurant called Windows on the World, which was on the top floor of the World Trade Center, and I have vivid memories of turning around and looking out those windows at the Statue of Liberty and Ellis Island from the top of the tower. Then to see that happen on television and to start to learn about the response from FDNY and all the the ensuing trauma that happened is you really feel it on a gut level. I'm not sure if it's different being a New Yorker, having lived in New York City for 20 years, but you just feel like this is unreal. It's surreal. And responding to Ground Zero, walking through those streets to see everything covered in dust and seeing military, police, like all the different services, walking through the streets in New York, almost like stunned. It was to me, like walking into the set of a Hollywood, epic, movie,
Science fiction film or something like that, or
like,
a war zone.
Exactly, that's what it was like, a war zone.
Yeah.
And so, it's something that just kind of gets etched in your memory and makes you realize that there's no certainty in this world. That as much as for a long time we thought, well, we're safe here, this could never happen. It just happens overseas. There's no, you have to let go of that attachment to the certainty.
Yeah. But I was on duty in London at the time, in Acton Fire Station at the time, and you call it captain. I think that time we called it watch manager or station officer. But we had a band there actually, but we saw it on TV. I saw it in the mess area. I think you call it kitchen area, but and then we just obviously in disbelief. But the other thing is that the watch manager, our captain, if you like, had friends in New York Fire Department, and he said he's sure they were probably, been attending the thing, which obviously sadly, that it wouldn't probably be a chance of. But the band played some music for benefit, gigs, if you like, to raise money as well. Probably not at your level, it was probably just a band made because there was a couple of musicians on the watch and on the station. So
so these are guys from your shift?
Yeah, from a shift, mostly from the shift, and I think one from my shift played the piano and the other one played the guitar, I don't know which one, and then the drummer came from another watch, but all from the same station, so that was quite interesting. But yeah. There was a lot of dust around and stuff like that as well. Was that still around when you attended?
Yes, quite a bit. As a matter of fact, part of the surreal, experience of being there was the dust, was walking through streets where there was nothing but papers that had blown out of the office building, the offices that were up in the building, and to see the total lack of, it was kind of chaotic. I have to say that, for and understandably so. How are you going to put together an incident command system or some kind of unified command with all the different organizations there when, in fact, it didn't exist really at that point, and that's kind of pushed forward FEMA, Federal Emergency Management, and other organizations to set up better interagency operability.
Well, I suppose almost the military had to probably really intersect there, didn't they, really, because of what happened, really. It literally was a war zone, because it was planes kind of, it's pretty much what would happen in a war, isn't it, really?
Yeah, and you still had military, aircraft flying over. And you had a lot of people showing up from all over the country, all over the world to freelance, and there was absolutely no system to kind of keep track, accountability, no safety, obviously no safety system set up at that point. So it was a little bit, if you're used to working under a structure like a, chain of command and all that sort of thing, it was like the Wild West.
Yeah, no, I can imagine that. Probably a bit like what Afghanistan happening there, kind of thing, really. Which when it first went out there afterwards, they had to kind of set up in Iraq as well, So that's what happens, really, isn't it? Really, it's kind of like you're camping out and then you're building new roads and helping, getting rid of the bad guys and rebuilding the country or whatever it is, because of what's going on. But
well, you touched on the dust, and one of the tragedies that's come out of 9/11 is that many people who were there, lived there, worked on Ground Zero to do, search and rescue, people that spent time in the area. There's still a huge incidence of cancer and respiratory diseases that are showing up. Many people have died up to this point from exposure, and there's still people that are coming up with, like I said, cancer-related diseases, respiratory-related diseases from the 9/11 incident. And it's, I don't know if that had a profound effect on my cancer journey or not, if that's part of what started it, but there's many people that have, file claims and are, still fighting some sort of some side effects from inhaling whatever was down there.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've heard some of the cases. Obviously, you hear a lot more than me, and also some even well-known people. I know someone, I can't remember her name now. She was a music star from 60. I think she's 60 years old, a singer, and she blamed it on she was in New York at the time, and she blamed it on the dust, and she died of cancer as well, or I think it was cancer. Yeah, that's right. But obviously, it happened rapidly with her. But yeah. It's just something that comes as a job. So we can move on to the cancer side of it, because I know in the UK now there's a lot of research being done with actually job related cancer, and stuff that can stay on your tunic and t-shirts and what we do before and after, and how we manage that side, because I don't think it's well managed, in the old days, and they're trying to do research about that with present and retired firefighters. I should really go on a list myself actually now that I've actually, whether you're diagnosed or not, they just want people coming forward. But I know, there's a similar system set up in America with this.
Well, first of all, it's wonderful that the cultures are changing in the UK and the US, where, we're starting to recognize that we are self-exposing to these carcinogens. And back in the day, it was like you were tough and cool if you had a dirty turnout gear,
That's right? Yeah.
If you had soot on your face.
That's right. If you didn't wear BA, it's like, I'll eat this smoke. we call it smoky, I don't know if you call it the same.
Yeah.
I didn't call it that, by the way. I thought, are you mad?
Yeah, it was like,
I'm wearing my BA.
It's a badge of courage, right? And so, I can remember once when I was on an EMS organization, we took a firefighter to the hospital. He was in a building fire, like a high-rise office building fire, and he was on the line, the attack line, right? And he was in a stairwell waiting for them to say, go ahead and hit the fire. He didn't go on breathing apparatus, or we call SCBA, which is your air tank, because he didn't, you breathe it down in like 15 minutes. Ours are good for maybe 15 minutes if you're working hard. He didn't want to breathe any of that air till he actually had to start hitting the fire with water. And so he sat in this stairwell breathing smoke and wound up, having to go to the hospital. So that was a culture which is now changing. Certainly recognizing that there's direct correlation between exposure to these carcinogens from the gear, from skin, from the fact that we sweat, our pores open up and makes it easier to absorb it. And we're doing a better job now washing the gear, washing ourselves, taking a shower, keeping the apparatus clean. And so it was nice to see that. I actually was part of writing some policy in my department to change how we handled those toxic exposures.
Oh, you was part of that. Oh, that's good. Yeah. So it's a huge research in the UK at the moment for this. So I think we're always a little bit behind on things like that, because America's a bigger place anyway. So, and obviously, you've got different states, like we've got Scotland, Wales. So, you're doing it for your state, aren't you, really? So, but for obviously the whole of America, really, ultimately. So I mean, in doing that, obviously, you had the cancer diagnosis before getting involved with all this as well, though, yeah? Yourself.
This happened midway in my fire career.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, I would say I was probably about 5 years in, and this was a routine. Like, I went to get my hair cut at the barber, and I felt totally fine. The barber said, "What is that on your neck?" And he pointed to a walnut-sized lump, which I had no awareness of. So started going to the doctors, getting scoped where they, looking down into your throat, biopsies of the mass on my neck, MRIs, CAT scans, until finally we got the words, you have stage 4 cancer. And that changed, was obviously altered my life in a huge way, and had to kind of regroup and stop working and try to get well.
Well, that's it, exactly, yeah. It's amazing, because I've only just got diagnosed, and obviously I'll talk about that on your show more, so if everyone can flick onto David's show, I'll give the link on my, social media and everything for everyone. But So I'm at that stage now, but obviously I'm retired, so it's a different thing. But it's caused disruption with my semi-retired life out in Philippines and just being in the tropics, locked down in paradise. So that's the disruption I'm going through at the moment. But of course, I didn't feel I had symptoms, but I didn't think it was, cancer. It was like not being able to pee properly, but still being able to. And actually now I'm peeing fine. I've gotten some medication now, and I would never have gone. I probably would never gone to the doctor now with it. So it's like I'm fine now, but it's not early stage, so it makes you sort of worried a bit. So the amazing thing is that you've actually brought it into remission as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it was a journey that I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy, but in fact, through a combination of modern medicine and technology and trying to keep a positive mindset, especially, I think of it as mind-body kind of a journey where you're handing off some of it to the doctors and you're kind of left with your mind. And that's where, I had total responsibility for how I was going to kind of view this and experience it. Was I going to be a victim, or was I going to, make this my guru? Like, what can I learn from this? How can I kind of reset and reinvent myself and learn from it to do life a little different going forward? So that's kind of where I went with it, and I did embrace some other, you call them integrative modalities that kind of, I think, help support the fact that I was getting chemo and radiation. Some of them being stuff like yoga, or I couldn't run or work out so much, but I'd go for walks and, focus on things I was grateful for. And sitting in a chemo infusion chair for 7-8 hours, got a lot of time on your hands. There's always choices, right? So we can choose to watch TV and veg out, or get freaked out by the news, or I brought meditations and affirmations in. I just pop in my earbuds and listen to stuff that I thought was more uplifting and kind of helping me to keep in a positive place with everything that was going on.
Yeah, wow. I mean, I'm not at that stage yet. When I say stage, I'm going to have some radiotherapy, but it's not planned yet. So, but with the medication I'm taking, the doctor said I have to actually do some physical exercise. Luckily, I was still keeping fit during the lockdown, because that in itself, gave me a lot of time to do stuff. So I kind of just went for runs, and now I'm not. I said, okay, well, I'm instead of beating the athlete or beating the fire, now I have to beat the cancer kind of thing. So we'll be training for that, But for you, with all that you've done, and I mean, stage 4 is a late stage, so it's scary for a start, and it's scary for me as well. But you've actually now got through the other end and managed to beat it. What would you say was key to doing that? Just going through all that, or the meditation stuff that we're going to talk about in a minute?
I would say it's a combination of all that. The meditation was huge. My wife her loving support and caring was huge, and I think, some of it was also the kind of like having the foundation of being in good shape physically, having a relatively good diet. And because what I went through in terms of the side effects and the debilitation of chemo and radiation, especially when it's going to your mouth and your neck, it really, it makes it very difficult to eat in a bunch of different ways. So some people are hospitalized, or at least get feeding tubes because they can't get enough food. They lose copious amounts of weight.
Is that because the chemo had to be around that area because that's where the cancer was?
It's more the radiation. What it does is it scrambles the taste buds of the tongue, so literally everything tastes horrible. It also makes it difficult to swallow, and you get sores in your mouth. And so it makes eating painful and very uncomfortable. So typically, people do have a hard time with that treatment. And, some of its practical solutions, like my wife would take the NutriBullet and make some, healthy shakes, and I just kind of take a straw and, get it down my throat without really having to taste it. And I think that helped a lot.
Yeah. Get your favorite smoothies and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Liquid meals. Yeah. Well, as I say, I've got radiotherapy coming up, and after Christmas, probably maybe. So I don't know what to expect. But they're saying, oh, you can still go out to work and stuff like that and do stuff. But obviously, it's the same as you. They're saying, there's no cure at the moment, but you did cure it. They might have said the same thing to you. I don't know, but
it's, every cancer is so different. There's like different, statistics involved with the cure rate or the success rate. There's different treatments. And in my case, things were not resolving from the chemo and radiation to, to their doctor's satisfaction. And they were like, well, next step is surgery. So I really didn't want to go through that. It's a very complicated and delicate surgery where you're right next to the, literally taking out the jugular vein, but also there's a lot of nerves and arteries in there that you don't want to make a mistake. So when we got to the end of the road and they said, look, this is what you got to do. The mass is still there. I said, okay, I'm going to put my trust in this doctor, and my faith in, whoever's watching over me has gotten me through my life this far, and go ahead and have the surgery. Yeah, it is a risk you have to take. I do also have a heart condition, and it's called cardiomyopathy. I don't know if that's, they say a lot of sports people have that, but whether it's a thing, and also a kind of maybe certain groups of people like African, Caribbean, which my background isn't. But anyway, I went through an angiogram when I was getting investigated first. So I had to sign this thing because when they put the wire through the vein, the artery to get to the heart to have a look, it's like a telescope. They said, obviously, you could have a heart attack and could die, basically, so you've got to sign this. So that's a procedure. That's not a surgery. Well, it's kind of a form of a surgery, but it's a procedure, not an operation. So, but still, it sort of got to my mind. But I still signed it and said, okay, I just want to get to the bottom of this, But I suppose really I've got all that coming up. But that's when it gets to that roller coaster ride, doesn't it? Really. So yes, it is. And one of the things that I would love to recommend to you or anybody else that's going through this or has gone through it is support groups. They are fairly common here, and sometimes they're very niched into like the particular kind of cancer. But I think it's so helpful to talk to other people who are, either going through the same kind of cancer or have been through it, because then you can kind of get some perspective on, what to expect, what happens with the treatment, what some of the outcomes are, and how people are, sometimes it's just hacks, like how do they get through, some of the discomfort or, difficulties that the treatment brings. So that's, a very helpful resource.
Yeah, well, I certainly will be picking your brains with that, because that certainly is something now that you've got very much involved with and very resourceful. Kind of, it's not. Wouldn't even call it a side business. Your website looks awesome as well. So tell us now more about the journey. Obviously, you've managed to actually not only go in remission, but actually become cancer free. You've come out of remission as well and started this meditation business, cancer. And also the resilience podcast, Responder Resilience podcast, we will talk about that as well. But tell us the journey now after recovering from this.
So, the picture was fire career is on hold. I'm getting the treatment for stage 4 cancer using these, mindfulness, meditation, gratitude, yoga. And fast forward to, all right, I've had the surgery, and I go to my oncologist and he says, today you are cancer free. And we're like, of course, super happy. And he's like, you guys are so calm. David, you didn't have to be hospitalized. You got through this physically very, very well at your age. How did you guys do it? And we said, well, these are the things we did: yoga, meditation, mindfulness. And he's like, I want that for my patients. And at that moment, Tamara and I looked at each other, the light bulb went off. We're like, we need to create something to help cancer patients and caregivers who are going through this same journey. At that moment, Loving Meditations was born, and we began to create an app where we have our meditations. Most of them are actually good for anybody who's got any kind of stress, but some of them are specifically for cancer patients and caregivers.
Yeah, and first responders as well, I guess.
So now we've, more me, I've started to adapt meditations for first responders and dispatchers. And I lead meditations in a peer support group every week. I've done it live. And part of, what I love doing is just being of service. But I'm realizing that within the first responder community, as well as the cancer community, there's huge amounts of stress, burnout, PTSD. Yeah. And so, part of my mission is to, do what I can to help people get calm in the middle of their daily stress.
Yeah. I mean, I used sports psychology with doing track, because I said I competed up to Olympic trials, in the UK and some sort of pretty high level, at least at national level and sometimes internationally, but not obviously a superstar. But while I was a firefighter, so I used a bit of sports psychology, including meditation, visualization, stuff like that, to go with it for my warm-up procedures and everything else. So it was applied. But a lot of people looked at it in those days as something kind of like, oh, it's from the Eastern world. It's a bit like yoga as well, which is very good for you now. But those days it wasn't looked upon as, traditional kind of stuff. But
right. Well, Dave, I would say that even today, you think of meditation, most people think of meditation, it's got a really cliche kind of image, right? It's got this, there's a monk sitting on a mountain in a lotus position. Right, he's going, and he's, got his hands up or open and he's there for hours, right? And that is not only not accurate, but it's not applicable to life today, where people don't have the time. They don't have a place where they can go for 20 minutes or an hour in the middle of their day. So one of the things we're doing with meditation is we've adapted it to daily life and daily stress, where you can actually meditate with your iPhone or your computer, or in the middle of, if you're a responder or dispatcher, in between calls, we have very quick ways to calm your mind with no effort. And so what we like is that this is descended from the roots of authentic Tibetan Buddhism, but it's been adapted by our meditation teacher, Michelle Pascal, to actually be useful for people in the year 2021.
Yeah. So how does benefits of this, how does this benefit having a sort of quiet, calming down the chatter inside people's minds? Because that's really what it's about, isn't it, really?
Yeah. Well, stress is obviously, we keep reading over and over how unhealthy stress is. We actually think that people are addicted to stress because there's a hormonal response to stress, which was, designed into our bodies for a threat, physical threat. But in today's day and age, the stress keeps producing those hormones. Those have negative effects on our health, but also, and it's addictive. It's an addictive kind of thing. So what we do is to find a way to get calm, with no effort, no concentration, without having to, focus on your breathing. Like I said, in the middle of a daily situation, and change that hormonal cocktail into oxytocin and serotonin, which are good mood elevators, hormones.
And dopamine as well.
Yeah, dopamine. They're healthy. And to switch that addiction to a positive addiction.
Yeah. I'm talking about addictions. I mean, there was some serious addictions going on, especially with alcohol in the fire station. And even though I'm kind of put my hands up to that as well, but I wasn't really a drinker and I did my sports and that, but, I sort of socialized. But under the stress and the culmination over the years, it did increase with my own kind of thing. And it is very easy to go that way in our type of job. Even doctors and that, they're under that kind of.
Absolutely.
There is a drinking culture, which obviously doesn't help with that,
Yeah. It's there's a number of substances that come into play, just in sort of the legal world of substances. Alcohol kind of numbs people or helps them take the edge off. Yeah. People use coffee and caffeine quite a bit.
That's right. Yeah.
And food as a way of changing their mood with sugar and carbs and that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you just got to start to look out for, well, even myself, I have to start looking out for where it's going wrong with those sides of things, especially with food, because even when I think that food is healthy, it might not actually be, for the prostate, it could affect that, that area. Because at the moment I'm on hormones to reduce testosterone, so which is kind of like the opposite to what I was doing. You know, I needed testosterone with what I was doing. You know, so obviously looking at red meat and beef, and you know, obviously I just ate what was in front of me, but you know, not obviously I was aware of too much sugar and fatty food and processed food and junk food, but you still would go out and do it. And then under stress, you're going to do it more, aren't you? So now you've got to be mindful about. Now I have to be mindful, and anyone else listening who's going through what what you've gone through, and what I'm going through now I'm starting to have to be mindful about that side, even if it don't look like I'm addicted to anything or responding with stress to say, I'm increasing this. Yeah,
absolutely. It's a recalibration and kind of a reset of habits, lifelong habits, maybe that you want to do everything you can to give yourself the best. Make yourself the best you can to deal with the the cancer journey. So, and flipping back to the responders, it can get to be more than just a alcohol to take the edge off. That turns into an addiction. There are certainly people that are in that profession who are dealing with PTSD and other, deep amounts of stress, and turning to, outside of normal channels, turning to stuff like alcohol and substance abuse to deal with the emotional side of the stress. So part of what we're doing with the Responder Resilience podcast is I have my co-hosts are trauma therapists who work with a technique called EMDR. It's eye movement desensitization, where it very quickly helps people dissolve trauma and strong emotions. And it's really gaining acceptance here in the U.S. I keep hearing about it all the time, and I know a lot of success stories with responders who are using it because they've got PTSD-like symptoms. And so it's part of what we do on the show is to try to share information and have guests like you to talk about what they've done to be resilient and to bring a healthy, kind of mind-body wellness to being a first responder.
No, absolutely. Well, let's look at your show a bit more. Obviously, both cancer patients and first responders will benefit from what you have to share. But of course, also with this new meditation approach that you and Tamara are doing, can benefit a lot of people, most people around the world, with the stuff that's happened with COVID.
Yes, part of. You mentioned Peaceful Oasis Live, which is a podcast I do with Tamara. That was born out of the COVID year that we all had, as a way to create some, let's say, positive content with a built-in meditation concert, some music, some a process of activation, a guided imagery. So with COVID, everyone is experiencing higher degree of stress. People like cancer patients and caregivers, it's through the roof because now they're that much more, worried about their loved one bringing home COVID or getting COVID. Their immune systems can be compromised from chemotherapy. So what we do is we have a different guest every other week where we talk about some aspect of wellness for everybody, but it's got a little bit of special pertinence for cancer patients and caregivers.
Well, that sounds fantastic. And of course, as we're talking about alcohol and lack of exercise doesn't help with the immune system. It actually does the opposite. And vitamin D, I've learned a lot as well myself because, I thought I knew stuff, because I was doing some more personal training, fitness coaching during the job, but now I've gone more wider like yourself, But yeah, so how can people find out more about what you're doing, Dave, with both the responders resilience and the meditation Oasis? Oh, you say it. Tell us more about what you're doing and where people can find out more about it.
Absolutely. Responder Resilience podcast is every week, Sundays live at 7 p.m. Eastern time, like New York time. on a couple different channels, but I would steer you towards YouTube. It's called Responder Resilience. Of course, you can watch the replays there as well. And lovingmeditations.com is our website, lovingmeditations.com. That's where you can find out about the Loving Meditations app and our book, Live Calm with Cancer, and our podcasts, Peaceful Oasis Live, and a few other things that we're up to. It's all kind of there on one website.
That's fantastic, Dave. Dave, it's really a great pleasure having you. This is the first time I'm speaking to someone I've had firefighters on my show, because obviously I'm talking about things like, you know, on the theme what we're talking about, but not since I've had this cancer diagnosis. You know, I mean, during COVID I have had a couple, and you know, it's a big topic, but now the first time, and obviously it's helping me and it's going to help lots of people as well. So keep doing what you're doing, Dave. And Dave, it's a great pleasure having you. And I wanted to have you on here again, and hopefully I'll be like you, sort of recovered and just, you know, got a good few years in me yet. So
great.
Have you back.
Yes. Well, thanks, Dave. And I think what you're doing, you know, to be in a place where you want to talk about it, share what's going on in your life, and, you know, how your journey's going, is really, it's really important to kind of open up and share that stuff. And I wish you all the best. You'll be in my thoughts and prayers every day.
Thank you very much, Dave.
That's all for this episode. Thanks for listening, and remember, if you want to support what we do, then share, subscribe, and leave a review over on Apple Podcasts, or head over to my website, davepalmer.com, and click on Rate Show. Well, that's all for now, but I'll see you in the next episode of The Dave Palmer Show.
Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.